Hello everybody, Tom here at Tabletop Republic and welcome to this painting tutorial on a Lesser Obsidian Golem for Kings of War from the Abyssal Dwarf faction. I'm going to paint this guy in a lava style, so the first colour I'm going to use is a light yellow, in this instance Babe Blonde from Army Painter War Paints. And if you do have a bright yellow spray primer, then by all means just use that instead. I didn't have one to hand, so just went in with the white primer, and I'm going to just get a large brush and work this yellow in to the whole miniature. There are one or two sections that will be painted as sort of armor plating later. It doesn't matter if you hit those at this stage, we can cover those again later. And as I said, this yellow is going to be the lowest level of a sort of lava rock style. And I'm going to paint this guy in. This is a speed painting technique. We're just going to be using dry brushing, but it comes out with a cool effect in the end. So the yellow's done. We're on to Mythical Orange from Army Painter War Paints again. Of course, substitute these with any other yellows and oranges and reds that you may have from whatever paint red you've got. This time we're going to dry brush the orange on, so we're just working the orange into the bristles on a paper towel, taking off the excess, and then we are going to brush this over the top quite liberally for a dry brush, as this is still one of the relatively inner layers of the lava effect that we're going to be building up here. So that's going to just go straight over the top, like so, over the whole miniature, leaving some of that yellow behind. And as a side note, if when you did the yellow layer a moment ago, you found it didn't cover 100%, don't worry, because as you can see, we're sort of building up on top of it anyway. So next it's Pure Red from War Paints again, in Army Painter range. And just as with the previous layer, we're going to use a dry brush technique here. So again, working the paint into the bristles, getting the excess off on a paper towel here, and we are going to work this over the top, leaving behind this time some of the orange as well. So we are taking care to still putting a fair amount over the top, so you don't need to be super delicate with it, but just take a little bit of care to leave behind some of the orange as well this time, because we are gradually building up this kind of lava fire looking inner sections. So with the red complete, we can now move on to the black. So we're using matte black here from War Paints, and this now is where it really starts to come together, the whole technique. We're going to use a smaller dry brush this time and pick out lesser areas once again, just that we did from the red a moment ago. We're going to do the same thing and leave a little bit of that red behind as well. So this now is where we kind of signify the rock flesh, if you will, of this golem, sort of meeting the atmosphere, cooling down and hardening, like you would see on a lava flow from a volcano or something. So it simply is a case of hitting the raised areas again, leaving behind some of the red, and by proxy some of the orange and yellow that we've done already, and do that over the whole miniature. And here we go. So with the layer we've just done, you will see that the black in some areas can be a little bit opaque, so that actually works to our advantage. It looks like a darker red in places. So what I do is I just stipple on some more black. I just take a few areas where I really want it to make it look like that outer layer of the obsidian golem has properly hardened, and so I just stipple on a little bit more black in some sort of choice areas. This I find, and you may find as well if you follow this technique, is where it really starts to come together when you hit that final low light, if you will. So with the once again, for lack of a better term, the flesh of the miniature done, we're going to move on to the armor plates. I'm using gunmetal for the base color on that. You could use a bronze if you wish, of course, but I've gone for a silvery metallic just to contrast the the flaminess of the skin tone. So all I'm going to do here is just base the whole armor plates with metal. As a side note, it might be worth having a look at the miniature before you start painting it at all, just to differentiate between where it's rocky and where you believe the armor plates are supposed to be, because some of the sections of the model that look like they should be armor could be confused as rock as well. So then I'm just going to wash the metal. Here I'm using Army Painter Dark Tone. If you have used a bronze, then go for something more like the Strong Tone or a brown wash. This is basically a black wash. So if you've used bronze, go for a brown and wash. But here, it's just a simple job of being quite liberal with this wash, making sure it doesn't pool, of course. And if it does flow over the sort of boundary, if you will, from the metal component into the flamey rock sections, it's not so much of a big deal because we've got black present there anyway. You can't really tell, to be honest. So go ahead and hit this wash quite liberally and just make sure that the whole metal areas are shaded properly. Okay, so now that that's done, we'll highlight the metal a little bit, and for that I'm using plate mail metal. So just take a lighter shade of whatever the metallic color was that you used for the base layer on the armor pieces. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a relatively sort of small to mid-size layer brush here, and I am going to use a similar sort of technique to dry brushing and just sweep over certain sections, highlighting up the armor, the edges, the rivets, and the bars in the faceplate, for example, here. Just make sure you can do a couple of scratches or something in the armor here, just to help it pop out a little bit more, because we did darken it down obviously with the wash quite a bit. Okay, so now that that's done, I've just added a bit of sand on the base there, just a sand mix and some PVA. We're going to go in with some purple tone, some blue tone, and some light tone. And for this purpose, we are going to make the metal look a little bit heated. So this is a very subtle look. You don't have to do this step, but this is just something that can make this speed painting job, give it a little bit more of an extra dimension. If you look at images of heated metal, you'll see that it does have this mix of coloration to it. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of spot these three colors on the different armor plates in a kind of rainbow, if you will. And again, this is quite a subtle effect. It's not massively striking at first glance, but when you do just catch the light right, you'll see a glimmer of the purple or the blue, and it does just give that extra indication that this metal is as hot as the the rocky golem underneath it. So it does help quite a bit. So if you see, I'll just use this again on this big panel here. Nice little blob of each colour. And when it dries, it just give that extra dimension. Okay, so there we have it. That is the finished golem. On the base here, I have just used some Monster Brown, and then I have highlighted it with the Banshee Brown from War Paints. I just added a couple of Army Painter grass tufts. So I hope you have enjoyed, guys. That is a completed Lesser Obsidian Golem.